Yeah, well, we have the same kind of speech every year. We've heard it for the last 30 years, nearly 30 years. It's always the same last chant. In the meantime, it's clear that all governments want some kind of non-committal agreement in Glasgow. They want to go home saying, we've achieved something, progress, but in reality, most of the big emitters have no intention whatsoever to change their energy system. And how do we know that? Because although we've heard these speeches for 30 years, CO2 emissions continue to rise. And there is simply no chance whatsoever that this is going to change, no matter what leaders pledge or promise. These promises are simply not credible, they're not legally binding, and they're not going to change the world. It's as simple as that. No matter what the UK is doing or what Europe is doing, the big emitters, in particular in Asia, China, India, they have said they are not going to do what Boris and President Biden want them to do.
Yeah, that is a worry, isn't it? They haven't got the big people on board. But can you see a way that we without the others, could have a change? I mean, for example, I know I'm joined by my panellists, by the way, John Gordon, also Olympic OPIC. Can you see a way that we could actually do that change without the bigger polluters? Is there a way that we could?
Well, we could, but unfortunately, the government is putting all their eggs in the wrong basket. The government and Boris think that renewable energy is the solution to climate change. And by doing that, they are making it worse because the world can see that this is very expensive, it's very unreliable, and it's causing all sorts of instabilities and blackouts wherever there are high levels of renewable energy. If you really want to decarbonize, renewables are the worst thing you can use. You need to use much more nuclear energy and low carbon natural gas if you really want it, and if you want to take the public with you. The rise in energy will sooner or later, and the relentless rise in energy prices will sooner or later cause public outrage and opposition. And renewables, as I said, are exactly the wrong way to try to decarbonize the electricity system.
Benny, that's literally the opposite of what we hear. Lembit, yeah. You're listening to that and you're...
Yeah, Benny, good to see you. Wanted to ask you this question. It seems to me that just under half the world's population, if you think of India and China and some of the other big emitters, want to have the same quality of life as we do. But if we try to stop their emissions of CO2, we kind of lock them in to second-stroke third world status. If I was in charge of India or China, I'd probably take the same position as they have. Politically speaking, do you think this is a classic example of the West saying, we've got our first world high standard of living, but we don't want you to have it because of what I think is the mythical concern about CO2?
Well, yes. I don't think that is the major motivation of these misguided policies. And in any case, even if China or India were attempting to follow our lead, they wouldn't survive. These governments will not survive if they make life miserable for hundreds of millions of people. Their main priority is to raise them out of poverty. And until we develop alternative energies that can compete with cheap and available fossil fuels, it will be very difficult. That's why I'm saying we are basically putting our eggs in the wrong basket. The renewables show the Indians and the Chinese, okay, the Chinese are selling us the solar panels and the wind farms, but they can see that they cause all sorts of big problems, not least the relentless rise in energy costs, which make our economy less competitive. So it's not going to happen. And we have to reconsider climate policy completely. because we are not going to stop the rise in CO2 emissions in the next 10 years, as Boris thinks we have to. It's not going to happen. So he essentially acknowledged that it's unlikely that we will manage this in Glasgow. So we have to reconsider what types of energy, low carbon energy or zero carbon energy like nuclear energy are much more promising. And also we have to deal with the effects of climate change better. We have to actually accept that we will always have floods and always have droughts and always have hurricanes, and we have to deal with them in a better way than until now, in particular in the developing world.